Hi guys, me again, and thank you for tuning into the second episode of Being Bubbly. Yes, we have another episode, we have another Lily ensemble. Let's jump right into it. I did want to take a moment and just say how appreciative and honestly just overwhelmed I feel from the feedback and support I got from launching the podcast yesterday and launching episode 1. The amount of people that not only listened to the episode, but the amount of people that either called or texted or sent DMs or commented, um, truly, like from the bottom of my heart, that is exactly what I hoped would happen by doing this. I went into yesterday not really sure what was going to happen, if people were going to listen or what the deal was. From looking at the comments and talking to you all, am so overjoyed from the support and kind words that you all had. And if anything, it's made me truly believe that we do need to normalize these conversations. All of the things that I talked about yesterday are things that not only I think about and struggle with, but are things that other people are thinking about and struggling with. And I think the more that we can talk about it and the more that people see that they are not alone in their feelings and that, they can feel validated or they can relate to someone else, I think is so important. And again, like my whole why behind all of this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so excited for what is next. I got some awesome feedback and suggestions from people of different, episode ideas or content or guests that people want to have or hear from. And so the wheels are turning. This is already getting bigger than I had expected. Not gonna lie, it has really put the pressure on, but that's okay. I typically do well under pressure, but I am so excited and I cannot wait for what is to come. So thank you, thank you. So in terms of episode 2, let's jump right into it. For today, I want to spend our time together talking about something that I feel very strongly about. This is something that I think about often and probably honestly like maybe 10 to 15 times a week. I get these like little snippets where I really think about how unprepared I was to be an adult in my 30s. And that's what we're going to tackle today. Before we get into the nitty gritty of it all, I do want to say, and this could be an unpopular opinion, but I personally think that the biggest lie that we are meant to believe as kids, and no, I don't mean Santa or the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy, okay? What I am talking about is when you are a child or a teenager, or honestly, even in your 20s, you are either told or things kind of seem this way where you believe that A, adults have their shit together. B, adults are extremely responsible and mature individuals. C, adults always have the answers to everything. And D, honestly, adults, when I was little, always seemed like they were just like comfortable and content and at peace with where they are in life. Now, I am a 32-year-old adult. I know that I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I also feel like I am speaking on behalf of any other millennial out there. I do not have my shit together. Not even close. I thrive on chaos. I thrive on disorganization. I am always late or behind or unaware or unprepared for things. Like I'm someone that's all over the place. I'm aloof, like I'm a mess. I do not have my shit together and I am an adult. And that's okay. But when I was a kid, I never thought that an adult would have this feeling. So that is kind of a mind shift for me. I love when people try and give me the benefit of the doubt where they say like, don't worry about it. You just had a baby or you have your hands full. Not to worry. Like, one, thank you. I do appreciate your graciousness. However, me having a baby has nothing to do with it. I was a hot mess express before I had a baby, so I'm going to be a hot mess express times 10 after I had a baby. But again, thank you. I appreciate that. In terms of adults being mature and responsible, I will give myself the benefit of the doubt. On a responsibility and maturity meter, I average probably like an 8. I teeter between a 7.5 to like a 9.5 on my best day. I do have a very high bar for a person who would be a 10. One of my best friends growing up, Natalie, she is just like, when you think of like just an angel of a person, so responsible, so mature. Like, even when we were doing dumb shit in middle school and high school, like, she was always the bar. My parents would always say, "Would Natalie do that, Taylor? Taylor, you should really look at what Natalie's doing. She's home studying and you're out doing God knows what." So I look at her as a 10. And I don't think on even my best day, I have channeled my inner Natalie, but that's okay. I will settle for, anything above a 7. Now, give me a glass or two of rosé, my maturity and responsibility will start to go down. But that is where good childcare comes in. And when I say good childcare, this is my plug. I really mean your sisters and grandparents, because they don't cost any money. So that's my little plug for always having your family members help out with the baby. But yeah. And number 3, this idea that adults have all the answers or they know the answers to things. As a former teacher, this idea of fake it till you make it really applies to that. I would get questions from kids that I simply did not know the answer. And I'm not going to tell them that I don't know the answer. So I would either skirt around it or say, "Let me get back to you," or come up with, I don't even know if it was like an accurate response. But nevertheless, I am an adult and I don't know the answers. The amount of times I still text my parents on a daily basis questions that, again, I probably should know the answers to, or the amount of times I message my pediatrician being like, "Hey, there's a rash, there's a bump, she's tugging her ear, what do I do?" Again, these are things that I probably should know, but I don't. And that's okay, because I surround myself with people that do know the answers to those questions. So that is how I get by. And lastly, this idea that adults are usually very confident or comfortable or at peace with where they are in life. Now, I do think this could be true depending on the situation, or, I know that I've sometimes felt, very happy and at peace with the decision that I've made. And as a kid, right, my parents or adults around me never wanted me to see, kind of the chaos that the real world is. So I get that to a point. Like, you want kids to not have to stress about those things or think about those things. Well, now I'm an adult and I do stress about those things and I do think about those things. And I feel very unprepared because I am so unaware. And I've just come to terms with that is what adulting in your 30s is. And so, again, these are all my opinions. I would love to hear if any of these resonate with you or any of you feel very similarly. So, I want to dig a little deeper into this and talk about kind of my thoughts on adulting when it comes to, I guess, all things related to assets. So, like cars, homes, apartments, whatever it might be. Those are probably the 2 biggest areas where I feel the most frustration and I feel the most unprepared to tackle any situation. So, cars, right? We love them, we rely on them, we use them, and yet they let us down time and time again. One blinking light, one warning signal at a time. It's truly infuriating. Every single time I get into my car, I feel like there is some sort of your engine fluid is low, or your coolant level is low, or time to get an oil change, whatever. There's always something blinking in my car. And I feel like I just did something, or I just paid money on some other service and now there's something new. They happen at the most inconvenient times. And I feel like they happen over and over and over again. My dad owned a transmission business growing up, or still does. So you would think by association, I would know my way around a car. That is very incorrect. And here's why. I, like honestly, most things in my life, was enabled. And anytime there was a problem with my car, I would tell my dad, he would take my keys, we would switch cars, and he would fix it. That's all I know. That happened very often. He would handle it, and then I'd get back in my car. Not a worry in the world. The one car related thing that I know how to do as a 32-year-old adult is I know how to check the oil wand stick. Growing up, didn't know that checking oil was a thing, or that your car needed oil to run properly. And so I either ignored all of the check engine, check oil lights that came on, or honestly, I don't even remember them coming on. I would drive around and there would be no oil in my car. And month after month, something would go wrong. It would be very expensive. My dad would be very upset with me. It was like this whole cycle that we did. And then finally, I think I might have been in college or just out of college. And he was like, that's it. We're done. Next time something happens with your car that is a direct result of you not checking the oil, you're on your own. Well, that was all I needed to hear, because then I learned how to check the stick. So yes, that is the only car related thing that I know. Everything else that happens, I will still text my dad, even though he lives nowhere near me. And I will ask him for what to do. He will tell me every single time. He'll say, bring it to the dealership, bring it to your mechanic. Not much I can help you with. You're in Boston. And that's basically how every car situation goes. Now, my husband gets mad at me because every time he gets into my car, there's some sort of flashing light going on. And I will say, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't really go down the rabbit holes of those. However, I did once see that there's this conspiracy out there that car dealerships will send messages and alerts like into your car so that you have to bring it in and spend money. I don't know where I found that, but I read that years ago, and like that definitely has stuck with me a little bit. So that's like the one conspiracy theory. I'm like, I wonder if this has any credibility. Although I know that it doesn't, but just something to think about. But yeah, cars, we love them, we hate them. They're the worst. If I'm in the car and whether I'm driving or my husband's driving and he's like, oh, we have to stop for gas, I'm in a bad mood. Why am I in a bad mood? Stopping for gas takes 5 minutes, but it is an inconvenience. Getting out, pumping your gas, like it's an inconvenience. You have to do it. Takes 5 minutes. It's really not a big deal, but no one likes to have to stop for gas. No one does. So it's just, I don't know. That's the end of my car soapbox, but being an adult and having to fix car issues sucks because they are a lot of money and they are frequent. In terms of being a homeowner or an apartment owner, or honestly, even if you're just leasing or renting an apartment or home, as a homeowner, owning your home, not only is it like the biggest expense you will ever pay for, like buying a house, the amount of money that goes into your home after you have paid hundreds and thousands of dollars to buy the home is insane to me. Every day, there is a new bill that comes through the mail. I always wonder why my husband never checks the mail. And I feel like I figured it out. It's because every time we do, there's a bill. Now, little does he know, he might not walk out to the mailbox to go get the mail, but every time I look at a bill, what do? Go put it on his desk. It's a habit I'm trying to break. I'm trying to get better at finances and all of that. It's a work in progress. But nonetheless, homes are a money suck. It is the best. It's the best feeling when you buy your first house or when you rent your first apartment out of college. It is so cool. Like, you feel so empowered. I am all for that. However, Like after the novelty wears off, it is bill after bill, always something, always something. Now, I will say, if you do rent, you typically can just reach out to your landlord and they fix and solve all of your problems, which that works for the short term. However, when you do eventually end up buying a house, you now are the landlord where you now have to fix and pay for said issues. So it really doesn't prepare you for that, but it just gives you a little bit more time before you have to deal with it. So that's just my little plug there. One thing about having a house, you not only have the actual brick and mortar building, you now have a yard. Landscaping does not come easily to most. Landscaping is quite expensive. Dirt, grass seed, plants, all the things that go into landscaping, very expensive. I will never forget, we had moved in. We were here for a couple of months and we were talking to our neighbor behind us. And she was like, let me know if, you need a contact for a gutter guy. The winter's coming, so you want to get your gutters cleaned. I didn't know that was the thing. I know what a gutter is. I guess it shouldn't have leaves sticking out of it, but I didn't know that you needed to pay money or do it yourself to get it cleaned for the winter. Again, we were very unprepared people and we're learning as we go, and that's okay. But I do think it is important to discuss all things that have to do with being a homeowner when you are an adult. Because you can't continue to text your parents. Even though I still do, there will be a time where they're going to say, stop texting, figure it out on your own. And I am very scared that that day is near. Next, I want to talk about being an adult and a parent at the same time. So being an adult is hard enough, trying to figure it all out. Now throw in you are a parent. So not only are you trying to figure out how to take care of yourself, but now you are taking care of another human being. This is quite the mindset shift for someone who I still think sometimes that I'm 17. That's how I feel. Like I do not feel 32 in the slightest. And so feeling like that and having a baby, often feel very confused or overwhelmed by the amount of decisions that I now have to make. Again, not only for myself, but now for another human being. When it comes to babies, like you are their brain. So you decide what is best for them. And not to mention, like all of the decisions you have to make around feeding and when they're ready to start solids and how big should you make their food or how small are the pieces. Like it is so overwhelming. If Google did not exist, or honestly, other family member friends that have babies, I would be completely lost because I don't know what the perfect size of a chicken nugget is to give to a baby who's 15 months old. But I can Google it and Google could tell me. So I do feel a little bit better there. One thing that we're going through right now is like introducing all of the allergens that technically I guess we were supposed to do like 6-7 months ago. But like I said in the top of the episode, don't have my shit together. So actually yesterday was the first time we did peanut butter. Again, I know I'm very late to the party with that. And Kevin's like, well, what's the plan here? I'm like, what plan? And he said, well, what's the plan if she starts having a reaction? And I was like, oh, well, I have Benadryl. The hospital's 10 minutes away. Like I had my phone ready if I needed to call 911. Like, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. That's what the pediatrician said. He said, try it and see what happens. So that's what we did. And she loved it, which is a problem for me because I hate peanut butter. So that's going to be fun. When it comes to baby health decisions, I just want to say, whoever created the in-app messaging systems, God bless you. Because the amount of times I have messaged our pediatrician over very minor things is mind-boggling. I've never related more to a Friends episode than the episode where Ross and Rachel have the baby in their home and Rachel calls the pediatrician for like any little thing and the pediatrician like fires them as, you know, his patient. That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm going to be fired from my child's pediatrician because I am constantly like, oh, she has a bump, she has a rash, she's tugging on her ear. What do I do? But again, I don't know. So I need to find someone who does. And typically it's the pediatrician. So I'm going to still message them. And usually I'll message them after I call my mom and say, what do I do? And she'll say, well, did you call the doctor? No. So let me call the doctor. That's typically how it works. Another thing that I struggle with is when to give the baby ibuprofen versus Tylenol. I don't know when to distinguish to give myself ibuprofen and Tylenol. So how do I know with the baby? And then not to mention, sometimes they recommend doing ibuprofen, 4 hours, Tylenol, 4 hours, ibuprofen, and do this whole like cycle of the two of them. I don't know. And so again, I have to either call my mom or call the doctor because I don't know. If I had $1 for every time I said, I don't know, I would be a very rich individual. My last thought with being an adult and a parent simultaneously is I have found that usually I err on the side of caution, and anytime something happens, I'll of course message through the messaging app, but then I will typically bring her in just to be safe. The amount of money it costs to bring your child to the doctor is alarming. It's $25 to just get in through the door. And then not to mention, it's, let's test for COVID and the flu and RSV and a UTI and all these tests, $40, $60, $25. I'm like, I could have bought that COVID test for $5 at CVS. Sometimes they give them away for free. It is insane to me. But at the end of the day, I would rather pay the money and get the information from the professional because again, shocker, newsflash, I don't know what I'm doing. So I trust their judgment. And that's that. There is this new trend on TikTok called the My Emergency Contact trend. First of all, it's hysterical. I love watching all the videos. I think they're so funny. They are so relatable. And I find like every video based on whoever the emergency contact person is very similar. Like if it is someone's dad, it is some sort of video of their dad drunk on a family vacation. If it is someone's husband, it is either a scenario where they are playing golf or at a sporting event where they have been heavily overserved. And then if it's someone's wife, 9 out of 10 times, it is taking place on either some bachelorette trip or girls' night where there is explicit to 2000s like rap or R&B, which in my opinion is some of the best music out there. And there are some very obscure dance moves every single time. These videos are hysterical. Now, I just recently changed my emergency contact from my parents to my husband. I think it took 2 years of marriage. Like this is, again, something I have very recently done and I still kind of feel some type of way about it, but that's all right. He feels very proud to be my emergency contact, so we'll let that go. But in terms of emergency contact, I always found that I would determine on the situation. Sometimes I would put my mom as my emergency contact and sometimes I would put my dad. And again, I always tried to figure out who would respond best and be less dramatic in that scenario. Here's my caveat to emergency contacts. I am a superstitious flyer. So to this day, and honestly, probably forever, I am going to put my mom as my emergency contact when I am making a flight reservation. I am very sorry to my husband, but I just am so superstitious that something will happen if I don't do that, especially in today's climate when it comes to air travel. So I'm just putting that out there. I'd love to know if anyone else can relate to that, because I don't think that that is too weird to do, but I don't know. And then let me tell you, obviously when you're pregnant and you have the baby, like, you know, you're a parent, you know what you signed up for, like, you are very excited. It is a very real and odd feeling when you are signing paperwork, whether it's your child's first pediatrician appointment or their first like daycare, and you're, signing all of the paperwork, when you have to list yourself as another human being, and like not just your spouse, but as another human being's emergency contact. That is a very weird experience. I did not know how I felt listing myself as Millie's emergency contact. Like, yes, I know I am her emergency contact. I'm her mother. If something were to go wrong, they were to call me no matter what. I get that. But actually, like, seeing it on paper, like, oh my God, like, I am someone's emergency contact. Like, I need to get my shit together. 15 months later, still don't really think I have my shit together. You really question if you are qualified for this when you sign papers saying that you are your child's emergency contact. Let me just say, I thought of a lot of different things throughout pregnancy. That is something I never thought of. So, just my little tidbit. I know I said a lot in the episode that I rely on Google or my parents to answer my questions. And so I wanted to do a little segment where I have pulled old Google searches and texts from my parents to share with you all, because I do feel like some of you probably have had the same questions that you have wanted answers to. So, in terms of, and let me just say, when I pulled these, like, I went back months and months to some of like my search history. I honestly forgot that I asked about any of these. Some of these I do know the answer to now, and I'm like, why did I ask that? But so, starting with Google, this actually is something that I did, I think, yesterday. I asked Google, what is the correct spelling of Wednesday? It is just one of those words I can never remember how to spell. Wednesday, I just can't. So thank you, Google. I've Googled, how hot should water be in a tub? Followed with, what temperature is too hot for water in a tub? Next, I've Googled, this was also pretty recent, how do I qualify for Wegovy? That was obviously a tough day I was having. What do you do when you have small ants in your home? Followed up with, why do I have small ants in my home? Followed up with, how do I stop small ants from coming into my home? I have a lot of Google searches on correct oven temperatures for certain recipes or certain dishes that I'm cooking. This one was yesterday. Can you buy whole milk in the airport? We are traveling in 2 days, and obviously Millie doesn't do formula anymore. And so I haven't had to travel with whole milk before. So I'm hoping I can get some at the airport. This was a good one. What do you do when you can't open the door? That one was then followed by some SOS texts and calls to my dad and the local locksmith in Vermont. What does excessive drooling in babies mean? And then average price of redoing your basement. Yeah, those are typical things that I want to know on Google. In terms of texts that I have sent my parents, these I went back pretty far, and I have to say I am embarrassed for some of these. I do stand by some of these questions that I asked, and a few of these I'm still waiting on answers. So, text. Dad, coolant fluid is low. What do I do? Another car issue. Dad, what do I need for beef tenderloin? And then followed by, what is the name of the sauce that goes with beef tenderloin? Dad, how do I measure for curtains? Dad, what's the house washing cleaner that you use? Followed with, okay, how do I do it? That I can say resulted in a trip to Boston from him so he could power wash and clean our house. which I am very grateful for. Dad, I have fantasy football and I have the number one pick. Who do I pick? Think I'm still waiting on the answer on that one. Oh, this was a good one too. Dad, flames coming from tires. What do we do? I realized in looking back at this text, I was pretty vague in the scenario. And so the next few texts were answers to questions I guess he had asked on the phone. I don't know if he called me. I would hope that he called me right away after this. This I think was last year. Ended up being a major brake issue. Again, what did I tell you? Cars. But yeah, I've had a lot of texts to my dad about random shit. And then text to my mom, a little bit different, not as like emergency based texts. Mom, how do I use your CVS coupons? I'm a coupon girly. She gets like every time you use her account at CVS, you get like $5, $10, $15 off every single time. So I always try and hack into her account. How do I turn my savings bonds in for cash? Desperate times, peoples. Ooh, this was a good one. I was planning Millie's baptism. Mom, what do I put on description for a baptism? Like on the invitation. And then this one, I don't have any context to what this was. I just thought it was an interesting ask. I asked my mom if water parks are gross. I don't really know what my thought process was there. I don't have any plans to go to a water park in my near future. I do personally think water parks are gross, so I don't know why I asked that. But again, it is rough out there for us 32-year-olds, millennial adults. Let me tell you. I am humbled every single day being an adult. I learn something new every single day as an adult. And I find my lack of awareness and preparedness as an adult to be slightly endearing. So I'm just going to continue to roll with it. And maybe in 10 years when I'm 42, I'll feel a little bit differently and I'll have this episode to look back on and probably judge myself. But until then, I'm just going to keep the Google searches going, the texts and questions going. And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on all of these things because maybe this is just a me thing and I just like didn't read the memo or take the class in high school or college that I was supposed to take that prepares you to be an adult, but I really wish that I did. So that's that. In terms of what is next for Being Bubbly, I am going to start a 3 to 4 episode series. So the next couple of episodes are all going to be based on pregnancy and then birth story, postpartum, NICU, all of that. And I wanted to break them up into different episodes just because like I found that each part of that experience and that journey was so different for me. So I wanted to kind of give each part of that its own space. So I'm really excited to kind of share all of my thoughts on the realities of all of those things and also share my experience with others. So until then, we will talk soon. Cheers to being bubbly. Bye.